Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Can Zoom hear me? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to our Sergeant of Arms. He hates Zoom people.
I don't give a damn. I tell them. Everybody, please stand up for this pledge of allegiance.
Move the mic closer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'm open to silence. You want to do it?
Just want to do a moment of silence for one of our members who's in charge of membership. Gifford Allison is having a hard time, is in the hospital, and he's been in rehab and in and out. So I want to just say a prayer for him to get better soon. Thank you very much.
We don't need it. I don't care about Zoom people. And I like to give the mic to the most beautiful president in Hillsborough County. That's why she keeps me on the job.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to keep watching to see if anybody else comes on to Zoom. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone on Zoom. Welcome. We have a couple of guests here. I would like for you to just stand up for a moment, introduce yourself, and tell us how you got here, because Mary's going to be really thrilled when she hears how you found out about us.
Hi, actually, my husband told me about it. Yeah. Rudy, how is it that you tell him how you found out about it?
We found out about it by a little article in the Observer. And from the Observer, I went online and looked up the rest of the information. But the first time we saw this was in the Observer.
Also,
Thank
we always
you.
come, excuse me, we are lifelong Democrats. I mean, I call myself a yellow dog Democrat, which means I don't change colors.
Thank you and welcome. I'm glad you came and I hope you come back. We have membership forms if you're interested in joining. We meet once a month. We've been meeting here. It seems to be working out. Or if, you know, the COVID is scary, you can come on Zoom. So we don't have anybody else. So if you're a board of director in the room, I want you to stand up and introduce yourself.
I'm the secretary. I'm Janet Mullen.
I'm Emmett Walter. I'm Sergeant at Arms.
Liz Conjero, Board of Directors.
Susan Rattledge, Assistant Treasurer.
Chris Rattledge, Vice President.
And I'm Donna Ford, the president, and I think we have Mary Shepherd on there. Hi, Mary, wave. And your ads work. Good job, good job. I want to also thank all our monthly callers. We're in need of another one for now. Of course, Gloria cannot be making calls.
Wait a minute. Hold on, I gotta kill mine.
Thank you. And but if you're interested in helping out with the calling and you've got a few minutes, let us know. So with that, I'm going to go right into our guest speaker, which I'm excited to hear. And Liz is going to introduce him. So Liz, if you come on up.
Very short one. Okay, today we have the pleasure of Luis Viera, who has been a member of the Tampa City Council in Florida, representing District 7 since 2016. He is a very active person in the community. He is a founder and former president of Lawyers Autism Awareness Foundation and is also the president of the Tampa Hispanic Bar Association. He's received numerous awards and citations and presently serves on the Hart Board and the One Tampa Executive Board. Here to discuss his work with the Florida Rights Restoration Council and other items, please welcome Luis Viera.
Thank you. Oh, I look this way. Thank you very much. It's that way. Okay. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I'll be walking around. I kind of like to walk around or whatever, but Luis Viera, it's a real pleasure to be here today. Obviously, this area, East Hillsborough, is not within the city of Tampa, but I don't care because y'all are active folks who are part of the solution on what we're trying to do. Not just in Hillsborough County and Tampa, not just in Florida, but throughout the United States in terms of getting people more involved to try to do the right thing. I've served on Tampa City Council since 2016. It's funny because you talk about close races. My first race that I had, I actually only won that race by 65 votes, which is quite amazing. So only by and I was up against a Republican, and I'm of course a Democrat. We're nonpartisan in the city of Tampa, which means we don't run as Republicans and Democrats, but most people know what we are. That's just the way that it is. So again, I've been on Tampa City Council since 2016. In terms of my background, it's great that I'm out here in the Brandon area because I really love Brandon a lot. It's a great area. I grew up in Temple Terrace, as I was discussing with some folks before, but I have an oldest brother, Juan. My son's here, Louis. It's his uncle, who's mentally disabled. Juanchi, as I call him, is developmentally disabled and has special needs. And we grew up in a Catholic church, but we started going to a Baptist church because they had a great special needs ministry for people with special needs. And that was the First Baptist Church of Brandon. So I went there for a few years, and y'all want to hear something funny. You know who was my Sunday school teacher? Ron DeStorms for a couple of years. So you're like, how the hell did you become a Democrat? but I did, thank God, right? I know some people are laughing, right? But it's true. So, you know, I love Brandon. My brother Juan, the one who's disabled, actually lives out here half the week at New Horizons Group Home in Parsons, off Parsons. So I again, when I say I love Brandon, I love it. I remember when I first came out here as a kid, you know, a Hispanic in the suburbs, and I would go out to the First Baptist Church of Brandon, and I'd never heard so many Southern accents in my life. You know, but it's great. It's always great to talk to people, et cetera. So, you know, I'm going to talk about local issues, but obviously on the national issue, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the remarkable and exciting things that are happening on a national basis, which is, you know, we've seen under President Biden a historic COVID relief pass. I know Democrats are now trying to pass Build Back Better. God willing, we can get something with voting rights, right? And let's not forget that infrastructure bill, the former President Trump, a builder, promised again and again and again, and Joe Biden passed a real bipartisan bill, by the way. I mean, that was a bill that I think got a dozen Republican senators, including Mitch McConnell, for the love of the almighty. So that's a really big deal. But for me, the really big thing that's happening nationally that I want to see more of is there's partisan issues, and I'm all about those. But there's also those issues, what I call the Liz Cheney issues, what I call the Mitt Romney issues, which is the idea of honor, honesty, ethics, and integrity in government, right? Which is the idea that when you lose elections, you don't go around trying to wreck the country as a result. And those are issues that for me that have got to do with American honor. And I'm always the kind of person that I give a lot of shout out to Republicans who overcome that. And I think that's very important for all of us to do, because those are issues that go beyond partisanship. Now, in the city of Tampa, there's a lot of great things that are happening right now. We recently passed in the city of Tampa, and our friends in the county also passed it, what's called an apprenticeship ordinance, which is anybody here ever work in the skilled trades? It could be carpentry, could be a welder, could be an electrician, et cetera, et cetera. So something that I worked to pass was to say that for folks who are doing contracting work with the city of Tampa, let's say you're going to build a big building and your contract's over $1 million. Well, my ordinance that I fought really hard to pass and passed 7-0 with the support of all of council, and Mayor Castor signed it into law, says that 12% of your workforce from that contract has got to be from a state certified apprenticeship program. What does that do? That allows our young people, right, who are graduating from King, who are graduating from Jefferson, who are graduating from all over, and go, what am I going to do with my life? right? Maybe college isn't for them, right? And they find out that, listen, you can have a living wage while working as a welder, while working as an electrician, while working as a carpenter, a plumber, or whatever it could be. So it promotes that issue. Another issue that I'm really big supportive of is public safety. I proposed something for the city of Tampa, which was a public safety master plan, to take a look at all of our city of Tampa, right? And see where we have deficits in police and fire, and to highlight those deficits. The big issue that we found was fire. Which is in the North Tampa area. We had Station 13, which services the Bush and Fowler area, which was the busiest station in the city of Tampa and the 54th busiest station in the United States of America. So we're working on that. You know, we've had a lot of discussions on public safety over the last few years. We've done a lot of different things to make our Tampa Police Department more accessible to the public. Things like body cameras, things like implicit bias training for all of our police officers, and in fact, for all of our city of Tampa employees, things like taking a look at use of force, et cetera, et cetera. I've always supported things like that. Personally, me on a personal level, I've never supported the idea of defunding the police. I think that you've got to work with the police. I'm proud to support all of our first responders. And I think that's something that in my opinion, is always a very, very good thing. You know, I also work a lot with veterans. You know, it's funny because we're actually in the county, and I always joke that a lot of times the city of Tampa leaves a lot of our patriotic ceremonies to our friends in the county. Well, as I joke, we city slickers love our country too, right? And so I've made sure that we get involved in a lot of different things in honoring our military. One of the things that I was asked to talk about is our work with the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. You all know that group. They're a wonderful, wonderful organization. Desmond Meade, who is a returning citizen, an individual who committed some crimes, served his time for that, and now has, you know, gotten involved in trying to help people who are kind of in the situation that he was 10, 20 years ago. Neil Volz, another gentleman who I've worked with, is very strong in that movement as well. They did Amendment 4, which passed, where you almost had 2 out of 3 state of Florida voters, bipartisan, Republicans and Democrats coming together to say that if you finished your sentence, right, you should get your voting rights back. 1.6 million Floridians before Amendment 4 couldn't vote because of a conviction, right? Nationally, 6 million Americans can't vote because of a conviction. 1 in 4 of those people are from Florida because of our terrible, terrible, terrible policies. Texas, a state that has a lot more people than Florida, has about half as many felons who can't vote as Florida because of our draconian policies. For me, again, this is not a partisan issue. This is an American issue, which is, we know why those voting restrictions were put in years and years ago, because of the effect that they would have on marginalized communities, on racial and ethnic minorities, et cetera, et cetera. So we passed Amendment 4 in 2018. Of course, it had to go through the courts. Our friends in Tallahassee, in my opinion, watered a lot of it down by ultimately saying that if, you know, what the terms of sentencing are, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the things that we're working with Florida Rights Restoration Coalition right now is what's called a returning citizens ordinance. You know, my idea is the idea that if you know, get out of jail, right? And I'm not talking about sex offenders. I'm talking about, you know, people that make mistakes, that you can come back from. Stupid things, because I always say in life, and I really believe this, that you're driving down a road, you can make a right and meet the love of your life. You can make a left and be hit by a tractor trailer and die. A lot of things are by chance, right? And that's kind of the way life is. And people who make a mistake, who want to return back to society and work hard and provide for their families, that we ought to be able to meet them halfway there. So I'm working now with Neil Volz, who works a lot with Desmond Meade, to craft a City of Tampa Returning Citizens Ordinance that does really 2 things, but there's 4 parts to our program, which is, number 1, through the contracting process, we're going to give contractors extra points if they hire returning citizens. Number 1. Number 2, if they ban the box, the idea that they don't ask you up front about your criminal history. They do that after the hiring process is done so that people can get a square deal. right? So we're going to give them extra points in that regard. Number two is we're actually going to start with the help of the county. I'm working with Gwen Myers, who represents different East Hillsborough areas, Seminole Heights, parts of Bush, et cetera, East Tampa, to have an apprenticeship program partnered with the city of Tampa and Hillsborough County for returning citizens. So again, the idea that if you're getting out of jail and you want to work hard, to qualify for this program, you got to want to work hard, right? That we're going to meet you halfway, because what's the alternative? Our failed system where returning citizens wind up being arrested, rearrested by about a 3 or 4 to 1 rate again and again and again, right? That's the system that we have right now, which has failed. But to succeed in this, in my opinion, we need to overcome a lot of our biases, a lot of our presumptions that we have whenever it comes to returning citizens. When it comes to crime, especially violent crime, I'm as old school as they get, which is if you do the crime, you ought to do the time. But once you get out of jail, you know, we don't have the scarlet letter S on people whenever it comes to their ability to earn a wage to help their children, because our punitive policy right now reproduces crime and it hurts kids and families. And this is a bipartisan issue. We're also working with a lot of churches to encourage churches to have returning citizen ministries. And again, in this, you're going to get synagogues where you got a lot of Democrats, African-American dominated churches with a lot of Democrats, white evangelical churches with a lot of Republicans, mosques, et cetera, that's a nonpartisan issue whenever it comes to that issue, a nonpartisan issue. And we're also working with the Greater Tampa Bay Chamber of Commerce to get them, and they've agreed, we're working on the number, to have their partners hire a certain number of workers, right, who are returning citizens. So for Chamber of Commerce folks to say, okay, this year we're going to hire 200 or 300 or whatever it may be. But our main issue with that is to promote the issue of returning citizens and to get that into dialogue. Because a lot of times for people, especially maybe those of us like myself who grew up in the suburbs, you look at this issue with suspicion. You're like, oh, well, they did a crime. So, you know, there's something, and they did do a crime, and that's bad. But people deserve a second chance. People deserve a second chance. Heck, if you're a churchgoer, right? Isn't that kind of in the Bible? You know what I mean? So it's something that I think is very, very consistent with our values. You know, in the city of Tampa, we're also working on a lot of different issues. Transportation. I would be remiss if I didn't mention transportation in the county district represented by Stacy White. So, you know, we had all for transportation that I know East Hillsborough supported by about 3 or 4 points, if I recall. New Tampa, one of the areas that I represent, this is the suburbs. Hunters Green, Tampa Palms, et cetera, supported all for transportation by about 60%. That's suburb folks saying, please raise my taxes. Right? Yeah, that's a lot of Republicans too, right? People coming together in a nonpartisan way to support mass transit. God willing, in 2022, we're going to get that penny back on the ballot. And it's up to good organizations like this to educate voters on what happened with the penny, right? What happened with the lawsuit. Because I was having a good buddy of mine over to my house to fix something with, what was it, the shower. He's a handyman. And I was talking about that. He goes, well, you guys, as in me, passed the penny sales tax and I haven't seen our roads get better. Well, that's because we haven't had a chance to spend the darn money, right? So we have to educate people on that because people support that. People support that. And we got to continue to work like remember that song that goes, where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio? Well, I always say, where have you gone, Lawton Childs? Where have you gone, Bob Graham? Where have you gone, Sam Gibbons? What the heck happened to Florida? If you heard the governor's State of the Union address today, you're like, the stuff you're talking about ain't what's wrong with Florida. You know, a bunch of teachers who are trying to sneak in communism to kids in a Joe McCarthy America. That's not what's happening in Florida. When I take a look at what's wrong with Florida, I see transportation. I see an affordable housing crisis. I see public schools that need more funding. I see an environment that needs funding. And we have major problems with that. You know, we're very lucky that we have some good elected officials here in the Tampa area. I'm very proud of my Congresswoman, Kathy Castor, who I think is one of the best fighters out there for working families in Tampa. I'm also represented in Tallahassee by Fentress Driscoll, a good friend of mine who's a state rep. If y'all know Representative Driscoll, a wonderful lady who I got a good reckoning one day is going to be on a statewide ballot. So those are some of the issues that we're working on in the city of Tampa. I wrote some notes. Let me see if I missed anything. You know, and just lastly, I guess about my district, one of the things I always love about my district, which is again, North Tampa, right, is how religiously diverse we are. New Tampa in particular is home to, because we have USF next door, Florida Hospital, Moffitt, etc. We have a lot of folks who are Hindu and a lot of Islamic Americans out there. New Tampa is one of the most religiously diverse areas in the city of Tampa and Hillsborough. And for me, that's something that's really, really cool. I'm also a big supporter too of refugees. A lot of issues are what I call values issues. And refugees are. My family, we came here from Cuba in 1960, and we were refugees. We were refugees fleeing Fidel Castro and communism, right? And today you've got refugees from Syria, you've got refugees from Venezuela, you've got refugees from Afghanistan. And I always say that when you use a ladder to climb up the American dream, right? You can't not let people using that same ladder not use that ladder. We do that a lot, don't we? We forget where we come from. So always encourage people to study your roots, and odds are there's some refugees or hard-pressed people there, because to me, this nativism that we've seen in this country rise up over the last 5 years, really 10 years, it has a place in our history because we've always been like that, but it ebbs and flows. But it's part of our worst tendencies as Americans. We have a great history. We're great people. We should all be very proud to be Americans. I'm very proud to be an American. I'm very patriotic, but our best American values have us welcoming the outsider, welcoming refugees, because those are great American stories that should make us proud to be Americans. Now, want me to take any questions or? Boom. Well, I'll stop talking. I'm a lawyer and a politician, so I talk. So please, any questions? That's a great question. So it was asked, what's going to happen? There's about $500 million. I don't know. That's right now in the circuit court with Judge Rex Barbas, and he's going to decide on that. We don't know. There are different people who say that we should lower the sales tax until such time as we lose revenue, the amount that's been collected. To me, that sounds like kind of a sensible way, because what's the alternative, which is people file claims? That's very, in my opinion, yeah, exactly. I just think you cut the rate. The Supreme Court said what they said, end of story, but they haven't decided that yet. No, it's sitting there right now in a trust fund. No. Yeah. So it's back down to what it was. Yeah. Anything else? Yes, sir. That's a great question. So it was asked, if we pass the tax in 22, will it affect the money that's already been connected? No. You can't combine it, because the Florida Supreme Court found that due to that independent committee, right, that violated Florida law. And so you can't collect a tax that violates Florida law. You can't spend a tax that violates Florida law. So that money will sit until the courts decide to do what they're going to do with it. Sucks, but that's life. Yeah. I hope so, right? I mean, I hope that it's vetted with this additional information, the guidance that we got from the Florida Supreme Court. Of course it will be, right? But if it's just a simple penny sales tax that says, okay, we're going to pass it, has to be spent on these things, and it takes out the things that the court found objectionable, I would hope so. But there are very powerful interests that don't want this passed. Clearly. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Fines. So a good question. So it was asked that Amendment 4, that if somebody has gotten out of prison and do they get their voting rights back? And yet if they haven't paid their court costs or fines, et cetera. So that was my understanding. Okay, I'm not a lawyer on that case, but my understanding was that when Amendment 4 was passed, it didn't directly speak to what terms of sentence completed meant, right? So the issue was, okay, you're like, I'll be honest, when I voted for it, I said, okay, you're out of prison, your term's done. You can vote. That's the way it should be. But what was passed was something interpreting that, saying, okay, your terms of your sentence include not only your time in prison, but then your restitution. Sometimes people owe victims of crime restitution. Sometimes you've got to pay your court costs, et cetera. And for many people, right, that's a bridge too far. $200, $500, $1,000, $2,000 is a lot. And that stands in the way of people getting their voting rights back, regardless of what, because again, Amendment 4, my understanding was silent on that. I think a lot of people assumed that it just said you're out of prison, you can vote. But since it was silent on that and our Republican friends won the governor's election, they passed a bill that essentially, I think, entered something into that blank space, I guess, if you will. My position is that if you get out of prison, right, you have the right to vote. It's that simple. We shouldn't be taking away people's voting rights. Yeah, yes, ma'am. And yeah.
My understanding is when they went to court, to get the petition on the ballot, our side that wanted it said that yes, you could include restitution on that.
Yes. And that's my understanding as well. And by the way, disclosure, my wife works with the Secretary of State that has to do with the interpretation of some of these issues. So whatever there, but that's my understanding, which is there was a lot of back and forth discussion on that. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. And that's a good question, which is if somebody gets out of jail and needs and has to pay a debt, which is where they get it. You've got services to help people either forgive or pay off those debts, right? But that's a big issue, which is how do they get their voting rights back? So, yes. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I remember our Attorney General, Ashley Moody, I think tried to accuse, was it Michael Bloomberg's group of violating the law? I don't know what happened with that. So I don't want to speak to that, but yeah, I don't know what happened to that. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Sure. Great question. So it was asked about my position on transportation. In my view, we ought to pass a penny sales tax, right, that will allow us to be on the path towards mass transit. We ought to have mass transit. We ought to have something like, whether it's rail, whether it's bus, rapid train, whatever it may be, some sort of a real robust 21st century quality mass transit system, I think is what we need here. That ought to be number one. We also ought to take care of our roads. I think that's something that's very important. We ought to look at repaving the city. To give you some stats, the city of Tampa's repaving budget is $5 million. Right? Just to keep our roads to where they should be, it's $16 million a year. Our budget for sidewalks is $850,000. And that's kind of pathetic. So yeah, that's a great question. And yes, we are. So that's a great question. So a lot of members of Congress, including Kathy Castor, worked to it that the ARPA money under President Biden could be spent by local municipalities. So we're able to do good things with that money. For example, I got Tampa Palms Boulevard repaved with that money. That's within my district. We were able to finish up funding for our autism disability park with that money. And we're building a new fire station with part of that money. So that does help a lot. That federal ARPA money helps out tremendously. But to answer your question on transportation, I think mass transit's the biggest thing. We need more sidewalks. We need reimagined streets that are pedestrian safety. And we can't do that without more money, like I always tell people. Oh yeah, no, strongly supportive of that. I mean, whenever it comes to having a transition, I mean, right now, do you mean as functioned by the city of Tampa? Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. So, whenever it comes to the city of Tampa having vehicles that are electric, I strongly support us making that transition because we ought to lead by example. And I think that's important. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Yes. Oh, anybody on Zoom? I think Jan Schneider had a question. Oh, Jan, I'm sorry. Jan Schneider, you can ask your question. Unmute yourself. There you go.
No, I was just going to ask you to repeat the question since it's hard to hear them.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I will.
Zoom. Thank
I
you
will.
very much.
My pleasure. Anybody else in Zoom world? Okay. Anybody else here? Well, thank you. Well, thank you guys. Well, again, it's my, I always hate just facing the screen. It seems so awkward, but it's my pleasure to be here because then I'm not looking at y'all, but it's my pleasure to be here. Again, I was asked, and it's more than my pleasure to be here. And I, want to encourage you guys. I know this is a Democratic club. I'm a proud Democrat. My son, it's funny, who's here, was born on FDR's 125th birthday. So how that happened, whatever, right? But, I'm a very proud Democrat. But one of the things I always encourage people to do, even in Democratic clubs, is to always try to build bridges with people in today, which is we can be strong Democrats, but still build bridges with people with mainstream differences of opinion. Mainstream, I don't mean some wacko who invaded the Capitol. I mean mainstream differences of opinion, which is that we have to see the good in one another as Americans. For me, especially since January 6th, a little over a year ago, that's been one of my big passions, is trying to build bridges with people, which is, I'm a proud Democrat. I'm an FDR, Harry Truman, John Kennedy, LBJ, Carter, Obama, Biden, Democrat. And I'm proud of that, right? Clinton, I forgot Clinton. I forgot Bill Clinton, but I'm a proud Democrat. But you know what? We got to build bridges with people, because this stuff that's happened in our country, where we're so divided and yelling at each other and using social media to only rip us apart further and further, it's not good for America. So we can be good Democrats, but we always got to be civil, even if the other side's not. That's my opinion. No. God forbid, no. But, well, thank you guys very much. I appreciate it, and always glad to return. Thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very interesting.
My pleasure. Well, if you guys will pardon me, I got to go. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you. Let's give Lewis a big hand. Thank you for coming all the way to Brandon. So do we have emails and letters? Okay. Thanks, Lewis. Okay. Sure. We're going to go into the business minute meeting, the treasurer's report. Susan?
As of January 11, 2007-05-32. 2007-05-32.
Okay.
We have a renewal.
Cool.
We have a renewal, Javier. We have a renewal, Javier Guerra. Thank you very much. And anybody else that wants to join tonight, we'd be happy to have your input.
Yeah, it costs a lot of money. Trust me. Just fork it out. The secretarial minutes did go out. Anybody have any questions on those? They were approved at the board meeting, but with some corrections. But if you ever do have any problems or questions, just let me know. Let me let Nancy Gordon in. Okay, so some old business. We have the Boys and Girls Club, one of the South Shore Democratic Club members. She teaches at the Boys and Girls Club in Waimama, and they are in desperate need of craft supplies, yarn, pictures, coloring books, anything that you might have laying around. If you have it, let me know. I'll come and pick it up. She was thrilled with the stuff that I took her last month, and it's an ongoing process. As you know, that they out there in the Waimama, they really need all the support that they can get from us. The 4th of July parade is going to happen, from what I hear, unless they shut it down. But if you have any ideas on a float or some way to get us around that mile horrible walk, let me know. We're working on a float, but you know, I'm kind of nervous about that float. It's going to take up all of our money. And maybe we're thinking about some sponsorships or whatever to getting that together. I keep looking up here and but you see me right there.
The red convertible is always available.
You know what? I have a red convertible too. See? Yeah, that would be, we could put 2 of them in there.
There we go.
Okay, and the East Hillsborough Dems are looking for board members. We have to have a slate of board members for February. So if you're interested in being on the board, Javier, I mean, I just saw you there. I thought, oh, he'd make a perfect board member. I know, but what's one more? What's one more? Get in touch with me. We really do need some new faces, new ideas, younger people, younger than me, to fill this slate. And the dues are due now, January. We have to pay the state by the end of January. So if you could get your due money in. Are there any candidates online? Jan, did you want to?
Oh, looks like I missed it.
Well, most of you, I think, know what I stand for, so I can just listen. But I will say one thing we can do with this campaign, and that's help defeat DeSantis, who I think is about as great a menace to this country as Donald Trump at the moment. The last 2 candidates for Florida 16th Congressional District, that's Vern Buchanan, spent about $5 million each on campaigns and didn't do much better than we'd done on less than 100,000. The numbers aren't there. I have a PhD and a law degree and I can count, but, and this is particularly your area and Sarasota, what we can do and what the numbers do prove is if I run, I get out enough progressives who otherwise don't bother to vote that we could make a real difference in the gubernatorial race. I'm not saying this isn't winnable. I'm saying that we don't know what the district is, but it's absolutely worth doing, and I'm asking for your support.
And you're running for, some people are new here.
The Florida 16th Congressional District, that's Vern Buchanan. I have to say an odd thing though, I'm getting to like my opponent more when I see the Republican primary in this district. His opponent is an utter, complete Trumper and a bigot. I will say for Vern Buchanan, he's not a bigot. And I don't know who to hope wins the primary because Martin Hyde would be beatable, but my God, he would be a terrible representative, worse than our current representative. And I just plain can't stand bigots. Anyway, thanks, Donna.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jan. And thank you for taking the initiative to run. Do we have another candidate on? No.
I don't know, Nancy came on for a minute.
Nancy Gordon? Okay.
Can I say something to people thinking of running?
Say again, Jan?
Can I say something to people thinking of running?
Go ahead.
In state and local, as well as national races, by far, maybe 9%, 90% are not competitive. But there's a vital role to running. You represent upper ticket at everything you go to. And that we have to do. We're very short on Democratic candidates in this area as of now.
So true. Okay, I have one more thing to say before I turn it over to Liz, who's going to talk about representatives. But if you are interested in that 1% sales tax for infrastructure project and you want to hear more, there are 4 meetings going to be happening this following month in March. I'm going to leave this at the door, but for the people at on Zoom, if you want to write this down, in District 1 on Wednesday, February 9th at 6 o'clock at the Jan Platt Regional Library on Manhattan, they will have some type of speech about the 1% proposed tax. And then on Monday, February 28th at 6 o'clock at the Northdale Recreation Center on Spring Pine Drive in Tampa. On Tuesday, March 1st at 6 o'clock at the Leslie Les Miller All Peoples Community Park and Life Center. That's on East Sly. And then finally on District 4, Thursday night, 6 o'clock, March 3rd, the Riverview Public Library on Balm Riverview Road. They're going to be talking about that 1% sales tax. So if you're interested in knowing more about that tax, I would advise you to go to one of these meetings and find out more. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Liz. She's going to enlighten us on emails, phone calls.
Thank you, Donna. As a club, we're trying to encourage people to be active as much as they can. And sometimes you don't want to go knocking on doors and you don't want to make phone calls to people's houses. But one thing that we can all do is write letters. And we can do so by writing letters to the Tampa Times. I mean, let the public hear the democratic opinion. And if we do it often enough, and enough of us do it, you know, we might reach some people, you know, and that's a great way to be active, a passive activist, if you want to say that. So I have just examples of what my thoughts are and what I have written to the Tampa Times. Whether they publish it or not, I don't know. But, and along with the Tampa Times and other publications, we can also write a word of thanks to our local representatives, whether they are the Hillsborough County Commissioners, our state representatives, paying attention to some of the bills that they're trying to introduce, and say thank you for your efforts. And that goes a long way. So those are just a couple of things that we as a club are trying to do and encourage our members to do on a monthly basis. So I'm just going to read you a quickie of my thoughts and what I'm submitting. And I guess Chris can put this on an email. So if you want to copy it or if you want to just get an idea. So one of the things that I see people talking about a lot is the Great Resignation and how nobody wants to work anymore. You go to the restaurants and there's nobody there and there's no staff and everybody's lazy, but that's not true. And if you think about it, it's not really the Great Resignation. People are actually looking for better wages, better working conditions, more of a work-life balance. So to offset the negativity of this resignation BS, I'm writing a letter to the Tampa Times that goes like this. There are several reasons for the Great Resignation that most of the public doesn't seem to understand. For one, there really is not a labor shortage, but more of a wage shortage. Studies have shown that even $15 minimum wage would not be a living wage for most families. There's also a lack of affordable daycare. Also, during the pandemic, many workers have reevaluated their jobs to find one that offers them a more work-life balance, which is embraced in most other developed countries, not to mention those afraid of getting sick on the job by those who choose to remain unvaccinated. Healthcare workers and truck drivers are resigning due to burnout and being overworked. Restaurant and hospitality workers are leaving because of low wages and abusive behavior toward them from patrons. I urge everyone to consider these points before pointing fingers and saying that people are just lazy and don't want to work. Also, our state representative, Andrew Learned, is introducing a bipartisan bill, which is HB 679, regarding medical marijuana. So I'll just give you a background to the bill and then my word of thanks to him. The bill would lengthen the terms of medical marijuana licenses and the time between required doctor's appointments, which combined would cut an estimated 60% of the cost of participation in the state's medical marijuana program. It would also remove doctor's appointments for medical marijuana license recertification under specific guidelines, ban related advertising that markets to children, end the practice of flipping medical marijuana treatment center licenses for monetary gain, and create new testing regimens to increase the safety of products, the transparency of state regulations, and the efficacy of roadside impaired drivers testing. So my letter of thanks to him is thank you for your efforts in trying to lower the cost of medical marijuana. We need to keep this pain relieving solution as affordable as we can so that our veterans, the elderly, and children who are suffering can get relief from the pain of terrible illnesses. So I encourage everyone to do so. You can go on the county commissioner's website, email all your commissioners and say thank you. You can go on the state of Florida and find all of your representatives and say thank you. And again, any newspaper or publication. We need to get Democrats' point of view out there and not let the Republicans dictate the conversation. You'll have to ask him. You'll have to, I don't know about local, I don't know, I didn't read the entire bill. So we'll have to ask Andrew Learned that, but yes, do so. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Liz. That was awesome. Now January 6th just happened, and I understand that several people went to the rally downtown. Now I'm going to put some members on the spot.
Hi, I'm Jim Guskowitz. Been a member for about a year now. Left, came back. Glad to be back. And yeah, on the July 6th was a rally downtown at the Sam Gibbons Courthouse. Lively crowd of about 70, 75 people were there. Big emphasis on the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Everybody had signage, a lot of Biden, Kamala Harris posters as well. Positive response from people driving by. It was during rush hour. Nobody threw anything at us or anything. So a lot of horn tooting. So that helps. And it was just a great crowd of people. And I think we got the message across.
Chris, you want to, Susan, you want to tell your story? Oh, Susan.
I was there and I thought it was a wonderful crowd, a very good turnout. Everything went very positive, and I was glad to be able to be there.
And it was warm, thank God.
How about anybody on Zoom? Did y'all go? Anybody go to the rally?
I went to the one in Bradenton.
How was that?
That was amazing. There were 200 plus people there, which for Bradenton is totally amazing. And the crowd, and there were also a lot of dogs. We must have a lot of Democratic dogs.
Love it. Anyone else? Oh, well, I hadn't. So tell us. Yeah, we should have gone as a group. Tell us what you experienced.
It was pretty cool. There was no incidents, which was a good thing, but the crowd was very active, very civil, and I think we brought the message through that we have to stand up to seditionists and insurrectionists.
Oh, that's right. If you look on our Facebook page, you'll see a video of that rally too. Chris put it up there. So, I don't think that I haven't seen anything on the news. Yeah.
About 15, 20 minutes, but nobody was there on site interviewing or taking pictures. I'm not sure the organizer, she's relatively new. I don't know if they can hear me. Can you hear me? Am I speaking loud enough?
Oh,
Oh,
they
good.
can't hear you.
Okay, they can hear you.
Okay.
So I'm not sure she was thought of that and all. It was her first rally. And she's just becoming very active. So, and I didn't think of it until I was there for some time by then.
Too late.
Yeah.
It's okay. I wish that I had been able to go, but this COVID thing has. Really? Doris Weatherford, she showed up at this meeting last time. So I welcome you all for coming. Next, oh, t-shirts. We still have t-shirts if anybody's interested. $20. Show your pride. I never wear mine. I don't do t-shirts well.
Thank you, Liz, for modeling.
Yes. Here you go. Oh, and next month we will have Sean Shaw. Is that correct? And people over profits. Is that going to be a political profits? Is that what he's talking about? Yeah. So if there's any other discussions, anybody have something to say on Zoom? Liz says she's working on Charlie Chris for March. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Huh? Sure. This is announcement time.
Okay, my name is Javier Guerrero. I'm a precinct captain in the area. So I want you all to say with me, let's go, Brandon. Starting this Saturday, we're going to be canvassing. Besides canvassing, there's a list of 75 things that we can do to help with the campaign. So please don't be shy. I'm going to leave some cards here. Just contact me or go on Mobilize, sign up. There are many things that we can get done. Even if it's just a little bit, it makes a difference.
Where?
We have this election coming where we have to get rid of.
Where are we canvassing?
Oh, we're going to be canvassing here in Brandon. Lakewood, that area.
Okay.
Do you want to put your information in the chat?
Sure.
You can type it in right here.
All right.
Yeah. You know how to get in chat, right? Okay, he's going to type that information in the chat. So get out here. Let's get to work. Anybody else have any announcements? We have a new member. Awesome. Well, welcome. And anybody else? Nothing? How about you on Zoom? Got any announcements? No? Well, in that case, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. These get short, but that was a great speaker, Liz. Thank you. And if you want to power up on Charlie Crist, we can do that. So y'all have a good evening. Wait one moment. Javier is putting his information in. Yes, Bonnie.
Donna, I was just saying, if anybody's interested in clean energy, the program for the Sierra Club tomorrow evening, it's virtual, is Susan Glickman. You may know her name. She's a giant in energy doings in Florida, is talking about clean energy in 2022. She's also talking about a couple of the bills that are in Congress that will be, I think actually they started talking about it today, they want to really basically eliminate individual homeowners to put up solar. Anyway, some dangerous kinds of things are being considered in Congress right now. She'll talk about that as well. So if you want to, and you could put your name in the chat, and I will send you the link to get on the Clean Energy for 2022 program tomorrow night, 7 to 8 o'clock on Zoom.
Okay. Thank you, Bonnie. Appreciate that. And thank you for all your hard work on that club. Anybody else? Okay, with that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting, and I thank everybody for coming. See you next month. Sean Shaw should be very interesting. And hopefully some of you people on Zoom will come down and meet with us face to face.
ever goes away.
It never will.